Alexandria Vita Farm, and this is our work. We called it Tools of Magic. And do you want to tell them anything about what we made? Did you enjoy making it?
This is our youngest artist.
This is Imogen's own wand here, made to her specifications in collaboration with me. And the other pieces we've sort of just gathered together looking at the witch bottle tradition. So they were all items that have been precious and then were broken and have been sort of brought together again. So we hope that you enjoy them.
What is a witch bottle tradition?
It's sort of like encapsulating a spell. So it's like a form of folk magic. So you might gather together like the things that you have on hand versus going to like a very fancy store and buying implements. So we were thinking of, you know, things that we already had, like candles and things like that. And
So, are you Courtney?
I'm Courtney.
Courtney has been in also very, very many detritus shows, and she's made some people out of detritus about the size of the artist.
And often inspired by this artist.
I bet. That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Look how wonderful.
The title of this one is At the Ballet, and this one is Madame Lindajinska's Last Dance. Okay, I've had 3 chapters in my life, very lucky, can't complain. And the first chapter was in costume. We have David Tozer here. Take off your mask, David. Show them your face. He's a very famous costume designer, Broadway, off-Broadway, television, you name it. And he hired me for many productions and everything. So he's to verify that my first chapter was in costumes, stage millinery, and properties. Okay, so you can see what this is, right? At the ballet and Madame Nijinsky's last. Then my son graduated from college, he got a job, and he had health insurance. And unfortunately, my second husband died early. So I was free. And I had gone back and gotten a couple more degrees in between everything. And I was in medical education. It makes sense if you have a bottle of wine, we can sit down and discuss it. Okay? So there was a job opportunity to go down to Florida to start a new medical school. And I went down there. And being a New Yorker in Orlando, I did not fit in too well. Therefore, I had very little of a social life. But that was okay. Something clicked and said, go back to your first love, which was painting. When I was 14 years old, my grandmother would give me her old blinds every year. I don't know if you had grandmothers who changed their window blinds every year, the roll ones. And she would let me put them up on the walls in the living room to the chagrin of her children. And when I was 14, I wanted to live in New York City. I wanted to paint full time, and I wanted to live in a tall building. Well, when I moved back to New York, that's exactly what happened. Okay, so when this whole thing with junkyard art, as my son calls it, I spent time, and I was telling Vernita, when did I start this? When did it happen? Because I used, what, time? Okay, I'm talking fast. Okay, so anyhow, the thing is that when my husband died, I moved to Florida, I was still in mourning, and I started painting again, and all of a sudden I'm doing a self-portrait, and all these little yo-yo quilts, you know those circles from yo-yo quilts? I used to make them into coverlets for our beds and all, and I had all of them and I couldn't bear to make them into it, so I put them in the painting. And that's where it began. So, this is at the ballet. What can we say about the ballet? It's mystical, it's romantic, it has trauma, it has this. David and I both, he assisted Oliver Messel, who was a dean of British stage design, and I worked on the stage millinery, and
Thank you, Zoe. You are incredible.
well, thank
The title of it is Art is the Handmaid of Human Good, which is the slogan of the town of Lowell, Massachusetts. I live in the neighboring town to Lowell, Chelmsford, but I have a studio in Lowell, and Lowell has become a real art location. So that's why I really like that motto. They made it years ago and it's used perfectly for now. The pieces I have here are a very used house paintbrush and a very used art brush. Neither one of them would be very functional as a brush from now, but you can see the use in it, and you can see that they've been appreciated and understood. The character here is a bottle topper of Minuteman. I didn't want to give him a gun, I gave him a paintbrush. This is kind of an homage to any local artists and the urge to be an artist and make art. And that is all this one is about. My other piece I have over here, and this is one of my Scorched Madonna series. This is called Scorched Madonna Under the Male Gaze. What I do is I made a series of these from old pieces of canvas and fabric scraps, and I will glue them into the form of a window, and then I have a very old, unsafe steam iron. These days you can't leave a steam iron down like this or leave an iron, but in the old days you could do that. So for 20 or 30 minutes you spend under that, and the scorching gives such a character to it that I really like that. It instills the age and it changes the colors entirely, which is very interesting to me. I have a collection of Madonna characters that I buy at flea markets. Most of them are connected to nativity scenes, but they're not in the scene, they're just sold as characters. So this one here I made about all of the male gaze, these male characters here kind of looking on the Madonna. And she's self-doubting, and she's looking into a mirror, which is actually a piece of old jewelry, a very clunky old piece of jewelry with a mirror on it. It would be hard to even use as jewelry, but it's a perfect mirror for her. It's a great character. And this is about how, no matter what women feel, they get very self-conscious about what men think about you, especially when you're a young woman. So that is kind of the idea behind this one. And that's it.
Rebirth is made from an old dishwasher filter. Probably you don't even remember, but there was a time where you put all the dishes inside the dishwasher, and then this was the filter for that dishwasher. And I liked the shape, and I thought I have to make something out of that one day. And I did. It has lots of holes that are covered in with obituary from a Norwegian newspaper, because I wanted it to be about life and death and birth. And then I cut inside it. I had peace for birth. It's sprouting, and there's a mirror there so you can look at yourself, because you're part of this whole process too. And this is something else I found in the mountains in Norway. And I found this is rows of obituaries, and there's a rock here, and there's lichens from the mountains that So this is that piece, and this piece, so my neighbor, who just let everything dilapidate, his property and everything else. No one's lived there for the last 5 years. But this is a piece from that fell down. It was part of a light, or not a light, but light pole. And then I like to use a lot of CDs. And this is from a factory in Long Island City where I have a studio. And I didn't quite know, and most of the time I don't really know what the piece is about before it's finished. So then I realized, well, this is really about eyes and then what is happening to the world with the red, with the warning, with the hands on the top. And it's my kind of surrealistic, crazy way of looking at the world. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you.
These two pieces are mine, and they're made out of recycled paper. And I cast the paper over either a natural or an artificial mold. So sometimes I find, well, these were all found molds. That was a jaw of a deer, that was a pistol that I found upstate New York, and this also, actually all these things were found upstate New York in a very rural area. This was a statue of a woman holding something in her hands. And let's see, the reason and I cast them using the paper. So I sort of make a mold with the paper, and then when the paper is dry, I can take it off of whatever I put it on, molded it over, or cast. So actually the inside is kind of hollow. It's not like sculptural all the way around. And the reason I used recycled paper is because originally I wanted to, and still do, want to save trees and forests, and I think that that's very important, especially right now on our planet, because trees are what absorb the carbon in our atmosphere, and right now the carbon is what's causing global warming and climate change and let's see what else, floods and fires and temperature increases. So my goal is to want to, try to, not cut down any more trees than we absolutely need to. So that's why I make my work from recycled cast paper. And let's see what else. And so my aim is to, with my work, to make people more aware of our environment and what we're doing to it, and hopefully to become better stewards of it.
Thank you.
So this is my work here. It's the top one is called The Flood. Actually, after the flood, they're reversed. Yeah, it's about what's going on in the world, and like it was right after Hurricane Sandy, so I was really aware of all the environmental catastrophes that were happening around the planet and are happening around the planet. So yeah, so it's about that, and it's on a. I was actually had a party, and I had a cheese board delivered to me, and it was a perfectly wonderful wooden plate, like square thing that you see there, and I said, ooh, this is a perfect place to put a painting. So I did. And the one below it is called Channeling Moreau. And it's more or less landscapey, but with macabre faces all appearing all over the place. And just sort of a train of thought. But the wood was actually found in the garbage heap outside my studio. So, and I use recycled paper for I recycle magazines and newsprint and paint on top of them because similar to the last person was talking about paper, it's like trees and all that stuff. Yeah, so most of my art has to do with like paper and plastic and I found objects in detritus and I try to make art out of the junk that's around us. So making something beautiful out of the mess that we make. But that's it.
I started out as an educator and an art historian, but then in my retirement decided, okay, my time now. So that's my second life. I also utilize quilting hoops and whatever I can find. In these two pieces, this is Brio, and this is like clockwork. In these two pieces, I also utilize some drawer dividers that this lovely gentleman gave me. And in addition to that, I use a lot of string, paper, and whatever I can find. More lately, I've been incorporating metal into my works. What is my work about? I'm not really sure. A lot of it has to do with my meditation practice, what I visualize when I meditate, and I believe that a lot of it has to do with sort of microcosm, macrocosm, the inner world and the universe. But that's what I do. I make circles, and a lot of my work hangs so that it can actually move and create shadows as it moves. More lately, I have been deconstructing my circles, taking them apart and putting them back together again. And it's just been a lot of fun. And I'm very, very focused on using as many recycled elements as possible, but occasionally I do have to use something because, again, I'm into circles. I do have to use something that is new, but for the most part, I try to. And additionally, because I know you were talking about the impact that we have, I mean, I hope that when people look at my art, that they realize that I'm upcycling objects and trying to minimize my carbon footprint. But having been an educator for so many years, I do try to bring that message to the children that I work with, classrooms as a teaching artist. We do go to materials for the arts. We do bring into the classroom items from home, and I think that that's obviously a very, very important thing to do. So that's, in addition to making my art, I also focus on that aspect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A little bit of styrofoam packaging, a broken mail toy, and some painted lace, and some dried roses as well. I've been doing these detritus shows, I think, since 1994. The first time was in Portland, Oregon, and it was in a recycled Sears and Roebuck building, which was where they did what they called Metro. It was where they did all the waste for the city. And there was a group of artists there called Garbage Gurus, and they helped me out as well. And the whole I couldn't put anything on the walls because it was this beautiful lobby of this old building. So what I had to do was, the Garbage Gurus had all these shipping crates, those things that that they put on the street to put stuff on, and we put those all on the wall and attached. I didn't even know how we did it, but we did it overnight, and the next day we had the reception. And I still have 100,000 catalogs from that show, and as soon as I can get to them in my storage space, I will share them gladly with anyone who wants them. I can't throw anything away.
Hi, I'm Deborah Friedkin. I do 2D and 3D mixed media art utilizing found objects. The 2D is collage work with paper and paint and pencils, and the 3D is sculpture that is sometimes a combo of clay and found objects, and other times is mixed media assemblage, which is entirely comprised of found objects. And what I do is I believe in deconstruction and reconstruction in a simpler, fun way, and my work ranges from whimsical to darkly humorous. And okay, so this is a good example of deconstruction, because this is called Trojan Horse, and I did it with a found vintage shoe shine footrest that comprised the body, and I look at things and I see other things. So when I saw this, I thought, oh, it's an animal with 4 legs, and I have an entire series of dogs that I did with this. So this is comprised of wheels and little lead Roman soldiers or Greek soldiers. This is a sieve of some sort. This part is a bottle brush. And my challenge is how to attach all the parts, which, you know, you have to, because I don't weld. So you have to use different kinds of epoxies, resins, and glues, but as we all know, that can be toxic. So, you know, I've had to invent ways of attaching the parts. And this other piece here is called Dog Park Meeting. And if you can see it, the one dog is sniffing the other dog's behind, because that's how dogs say hello. And that is, each little dog is made of at least 10 parts. And also the tree is a kitchen utensil. A lot of times I use kitchen utensils and I bend them into different shapes. And it's all affixed to an acrylic base. And then I made a little pigeon out of clay and wire, you know, because you always see pigeons in the New York City parks. And even my clothes are recycled chain. Just kidding, that's not true. This is a J-Lo top. And so these are examples of how assemblage can be fun and really make a statement about saving the environment and recycling and reusing objects in different ways. All it takes is a bit of imagination. Thank you.
Thank you.
Had my first art show 6 blocks south of here in 1986, and it was a blizzard on opening day too, so things come full circle. Where most people run away to New York to become artists, I ran away from New York, in a way, and if you run away far enough, you find your way back home, and that's what this show has done for me. With my wife and newborn baby, we ended up settling in Chicago for the next 25 years, where I became a union organizer for IATSE. My master's was in theatrical design, my BFA was in fine art, both I see post-college, and I always think of myself first as a storyteller, to the point where every piece I make is a character within an environment. And then the titles all have ... because that's the one line of the story I'm trying to tell. And I don't always know what the story is when I begin a piece, or the story changes as I work with pieces. When I work with found objects as a sculptor or a mixed media artist, I find that I know I'm making something from that. So I have a whole yard now. I'm telling you, it's a tree farm in Florida where I live now. And we have a whole big section that we call a boneyard, which is where I find stuff and put it there for a while. And usually when I'm finding it, my wife's like, "What are you gonna do with that?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but I will." And usually it's to sit 2 or 3 years. So I had those pieces, the bicycle for quite some time, and we collected a bunch of bicycles, and I tore them apart. In 2015, I was asked to be in a Dada exhibit. They wanted to do a modern Dadaist, and that's what they were considering me. I said, perfect. I thought the bicycle pieces were very close to being ready-mades. And when I make a piece with found objects, which is most of my stuff, when I'm telling the story, I don't want you to walk right up and say, "Oh, that's a piece of, I want to change it." You know, and I do that with a forge, bending, rebar, or with this piece, I want you to walk in and go, "Oh, oh, wait a minute, those are bicycles." I want you to realize it after you see the story. And it's very important for me for it not to look like found objects at first, but the things to come in and say, "Oh, that's piece, it's a gazelle on a trophy on a wall." Okay, and then go, "Oh, it's a bicycle," you know, afterwards. In 2010, while working in theater, I had a fall and became disabled with a spine injury. In which case, in 2013, when I became officially disabled, we moved to our land in Florida where we live now, on 10 acres, and my wife gets to have horses again, and I have a 30 by 40 studio that my wife thought I would never overfill, but I killed her. And I'm allowed to do like a weld, I could be a carpenter, I could definitely be a painter, I make my own stretches when I paint, and no squares, everything's got to be a little bit off. And you know, of course, the painter is also a sculptor, and when I sculpt, things get painterly. So mixed media, I guess, is the best name for me, but up until recently, when it became a brand, I really just said painter and sculptor. This piece was from a series of paintball masks I found. At that time, I had gotten my this shoulder replaced. I'm getting this shoulder replaced this summer. But when you get a shoulder replaced, you can't move it for 6 weeks. And then you're in an easy chair for 6 weeks, and it really kind of sucks. But I had this, and I told my wife, "Okay, you're going to find this back there, and bring it in. I'm going to show you where to drill it out for me, and paint this. You know, in this box is a drain lid. I want that because it looks like a medallion." And then it was leather and shoelaces. And I wanted it to be very tribal. I was feeling very, very indigenous, and it's something I really love to study is indigenous art from around the world, especially really the African from the Cameroon and American Northwest has just beautiful spiritual designs within their artwork, and I want to have some of that. I couldn't think of what to name it, and I showed somebody a photo and said, "Well, it's a beekeeper." And so it became the beekeeper's mask. And you can't really use that as a mask. I painted the eyes over and stuff like that, but that's what that became. I have more of those masks, so I had another shoulder to get work done, so I'm sure I'll be making more of them.
Thank you.
Thank you.